Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Ochs, and I'm excited in this video slash podcast to interview somebody on the other side of the world. I have Ruth Deering here. She is near Sydney, Australia, and she's here with us live today. She's a Parent University subscriber. Ruth, welcome to the video.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Well, hey, it's an honor. You reached out to me the other day and you said some really nice things. I'm going to read the email that you read to me real fast. For everybody listening on the podcast, Ruth scheduled a phone call. She emailed me and she said the following thing. She said, have you been getting much traction with Parent University? Josh, I've been attempting to spread the message of online safety here near Sydney to parents for a long time now. And I've found it very difficult, Josh, to get their attention. They're all so busy. They'll take action if something bad has happened to their child, but it's very challenging to get them to see how much better it is to prevent something bad happening by educating themselves rather than to be left trying to deal with the consequences once it's too late. And Ruth, I got that email and I said, oh, this is a woman after my own heart. I have to get on the video, on the phone with her. And I want to chat. So Ruth, Tell us what you do.
Well, I have a membership group. What I actually do is I help parents keep their kids safe online. So similar to you. What I do is I gather information from the best people all around the world, and you're one of them, certainly in terms of social media.
Thank you.
And so I put out a curated newsletter every couple of weeks and a video. And I just collect the best of what I think parents really need to know about, because I understand that parents are just so busy. And when you research this whole topic, you realize how much there is involved. And then you also realize how important it is to know what's involved and the things that can actually happen to kids and that are happening to kids all over the place. And so often you read these stories of things happening to kids, and the parents' reaction when, if something does happen is, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea what they were doing. And so my whole aim is to read less of these stories, hear about less of these stories, and so that parents, instead of saying I had no idea, I want them to have an idea. I think it's so important that parents do know what their kids are doing and they are involved and they understand.
And I feel your frustration, and everybody listening to this, watching this, we as humans, we sometimes in an industry don't know what we don't know, or we're not interested until we know that we need to know. In the 70s, credit cards were not a huge deal. Not that many people could get them. And I think it was in the 80s or so, I've been told that credit cards became popular, right? And people didn't know they had to check their credit and all that stuff. But once they found out that other people could hurt their credit, then they knew that they needed to go out and proactively protect themselves and their credit report. And I think now we're living in that age again where people don't know that they need to go protect their children's credit online, their identity, the safety, what could go bad. Ruth, walk us through a couple of the tips that you use near Sydney to teach parents, or what are you teaching them? And also, how are you encouraging them to be safe online?
It's a big question. I think a lot of it is really about prevention and just understanding what happens online. So things like pornographic content is there. The fact is that I think a lot of parents don't realize that their kids have seen it. They don't realize how young their kids are likely to see it. They don't want to have a conversation about it because it's an awkward conversation that nobody wants to have. So a lot of it is just opening up, and it's all about education and communication are the two keys, I think, to keeping kids safe online. So, having these conversations regularly, it's not a one-off conversation. It's a regular conversation about, this is what is online, what to do if you see it, how to deal with it. It just comes down to, I think, a whole lot of communication, really, about all the different aspects that people really don't want to be talking about. And you know what? It's also about not being as tech savvy as your kids, or not worrying if you're not as tech savvy as your kids, but having the conversations with them and understanding that what you have is more wisdom, I guess, or life experience to offer that sort of parental guidance. So the parental guidance that you offer your kids when they're offline should be similar to what you offer them online. And I think a lot of parents are just kind of skipping that step a little bit and not understanding just how important it is and what their kids are seeing and what they're doing online.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. They've probably already seen bad stuff. And then education and communication. I have a little story, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but I have a little story from a few weeks ago, and my camera's a little bright here, but who cares? We found an image or video, I'm sorry, a 10-minute or 15-minute video that was released about social media addiction, and it had Facebook former executives and stuff, and it was really big in the news 2 months ago. And Anonymous, the group that hacks people or whatever, had put out their own YouTube version of it, and it was 12 minutes long, millions of views. And Denzel Washington was in it saying, hey, everybody has an addiction. And his stuff was very wise, the way he was talking about. So we put it on our website. We turned it into a blog post. And the reason why I'm telling you this is it was so valuable. Now, one of the mistakes that I made is 10 minutes and 15 seconds in, it had the F word. And one of the executives was getting so excited about talking about it. It was a parent-only video, but it was accurate. It was good. And it had one bad word in it. And we thought, hey, if this is parents only, it's going to be fine, because kids have heard that a lot. Parents have obviously heard that. It's talking about such an important subject. Why would we take and dilute the message from these executives that's already been put out there, right? One principal got extremely upset at me. And he said, I can't believe that there's this word in there. This is terrible. And he had every right to do so. But what I think that sometimes parents are saying is, oh, my student has never seen this or never, and the point is they've seen it. You can't get past that. They're already looking at some of this stuff. And the same was true with that one video. I was like, hey, principal, parents have heard this word a million times. It happens to be in the middle of a video that's really good. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And students are hearing it on Netflix, everywhere else, right? In my speeches, I have students raise their hand. How many of you have Netflix? And 2/3 to 3/4 of the room raise their hand, right? So they're hearing these words, but sometimes we keep the actual things that could help people from them thinking that it's not. So like you say, not talking about pornography with them, they've probably already seen it. So we're kind of missing the boat.
Yeah, I think too, parents they underestimate their kids. A lot of parents really underestimate what their kids are seeing, what they're hearing, what they're doing. Yeah, these days, the kids are just doing so much so young on social media. I mean, when I've spoken to kids at schools and I ask them how many, who has a mobile phone, and I'm amazed because I'm talking to kids in primary school, so they're 5 to 12 years old. And I'm amazed by how many of them put their hands up, the younger ones, or the older ones, but the younger ones as well.
What age are they getting it there?
So they're 5. All these kids are somewhere between 5 and 12. Most kids, certainly 10, 11, 12, are using phones. But some of the younger ones too, some of them even the little kindies, and, some 7-year-olds are getting phones. I've got a son, one of my sons is 7 years old, and there's a girl in his class that's got a phone handed down from his older sister. And then the other question I say, who's on social media? And sometimes they don't actually know what social media is. But then I put up a screen and I show them the logos, so a Facebook logo and Snapchat and Instagram, and I say, who knows what that is? And they all go, oh, Snapchat. And then I go, and who knows what that is? Oh, Instagram. And I go, so who's using Snapchat? And then all these hands go up. And I'm not just talking the 11, 12-year-olds, I'm talking the younger kids. Hands go up. So whether they don't fully understand the question or they see other hands go up and so they want to put their hand up, possibly there's a little bit of that. But I just think there's an awful lot of kids that are in these sites that the parents just don't understand. Sometimes the parents even help them get on the sites, but they're certainly not too worried about the age requirements.
So you were in you've been in Parent University for some time. You've watched a few of the videos. What do you think, as a Parent University subscriber, what have you learned? What direction should we move? What's your feedback?
Oh, there's so many awesome tips. Parent University, the interviews that you've done, you've interviewed some fantastic people. I don't know. I don't know how to pick just one thing. I think just there's so much knowledge there on different aspects. So things like with your career, understanding, kids need to understand, and having your goals in front of you from the start, start with the end in mind. So think about when you're little, because kids are not thinking long term, they're thinking what's going to happen in the next minute. And they're so impulsive. So understanding the consequences of what they post for their future, I think that's really, really important. as you say, understanding how it's going to impact them if they put these photos of themselves being drunk or being silly. Maybe someone who owns a home isn't particularly going to want them to rent that home from them. Or maybe someone who is interested in them in a relationship sort of looks at them and goes, oh, who is this? Or, a lot of people are posing to be different people online. And so that's confusing. So I think just getting the social media etiquette right from the start, and that's been mentioned in a few of the videos in Parent University and how to do that. I think that's really important.
Thank you. That's really kind of you. So let's talk next about you're giving talks, you're teaching people, you're helping them. We need more people like you out in the world. What's one of the biggest misconceptions parents might have right now for people that are listening, that are watching right now? What's one of the things you get all the time that you want people to know?
I think there's certainly that won't happen to me. My children are responsible. My children are smart. My children are popular. And I think it's not understanding that it doesn't matter how smart they are. This is not about their intelligence, and this is not about their popularity. It's not about what they look like or how sporty they are or how smart they are. None of that matters. I think it's just understanding that pretty much all kids, if they have internet access and they're using a device, they're all kids. So their brains are not fully developed yet. Yeah. They're highly likely to do silly things online because they're kids. So I think it's just not understanding how much guidance they need and thinking that it's better to respect their privacy. And I agree that you don't need to invade your child's privacy. I recommend some parental control products, but I only recommend the ones where you're not spying on them, and you're certainly not spying on them behind their back. And you don't need to see everything they write or you don't need to be in their face. What you need to do is get a parental control that sends you alerts so that you know if there's something that you need to look at, if there may be something going on, and then you can have a look at that. And that gives you the chance to address what could be a real issue as it's happening so that you can work through those things with your kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right, so next question. We're talking a lot about positivity. We talk a lot about safety. Do you ever talk anything about anti-bullying?
Yes. A lot about anti-bullying. Yeah, I mean, cyberbullying is huge, of course. And I think that it helps to tell stories about bullying because, the other thing that helps is just to help people understand what cyberbullying is, because there's so many different types of what constitutes cyberbullying. And I think a lot of people that do it don't actually realise that they're doing it or that is bullying. And on the other hand, some people say I'm being bullied, but that's actually really not bullying. It's just a one-off mean comment. Yeah. The kids will be mean. That doesn't mean they're bullies. So certainly it's important to understand what it is. I think it's important to understand what to do when someone's being a bully, to understand how algorithms work. So for instance, on Facebook, if someone's being mean and everybody else pipes in, whether it's positive or negative, the fact is that then more people are going to see that post.
Because just to explain to everybody that's listening, there's something called the Facebook Edge, or it was around for a while, Edge algorithm or something like that. And the algorithms know that if there's lots of comments, lots of likes, it boosts it to the top of more people's inbox or their feed, because it goes, hey, we want more people to see this because it seems more interesting than everything else. So you're saying that if a child bullies another kid and it gets lots of comments and shares and stuff, it'll go to even more people. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It actually makes it worse. So even if the comment is a positive comment in support of the victim, it's actually spreading that. Yeah, that comment is going to be seen. The whole post is going to be seen by more people. So it may be better. What I suggest to people is find that person offline. Physically go and find them and support them and be a friend and let them know you're behind them. Help them go to an adult or tell the teacher about it if they don't want to go by themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, so bullying is such a horrible topic, and I think all kids know it's wrong. They're not silly. They know that they're doing the wrong thing, but there are different reasons that they're doing it. And the other thing too is that if someone is bullying, often it's because they've been bullied and they don't want to then be on the other side of it. So I think there's someone who's a bully needs support. I think there's a reason that people bully, and it's about getting behind that person and getting them help. Getting them help, because if a bully doesn't get help when they're young, then they just continue to be a bully as they get older and older, and then, you know, that leads them down a pretty nasty track in life, and they're the sorts of people that end up in and out of jail. So I think it's really about offering them support.
You may have seen that we've undergone a huge bullying research project, anti-bullying, and now we have 3 deep dive videos in Parent University that parents watch with their kids, and their student videos. We'll have about 15 videos when we're done, but we're in the middle of this. I sent one of my employees away for a month, 2 weeks, and she read the best bullying books on Amazon. I bought a ton of books, sent them to her. She had a really good time reading them all, and we put them into buckets. We took the best of the best psychologists, made their tips into our stuff so that we rephrased it to make it more kid-centric and kid-friendly. Because our goal, like you just said, it's all, I'm going to use your words, education and communication. You need to educate the kids, and you need to dialogue with them.
Yeah.
So we made a huge anti-bullying thing. Everybody listening to this, you can go in and for $10 a month, you can watch these videos with your kids to educate them on what bullying looks like, what it feels like, why it's bad. Ruth, as you said, telling them stories is so important. Hey, you may think it's funny to poke, but what if this happened to you? Let's tell a story, right?
Yeah, and developing their empathy, because empathy is such a huge part of it, such a massive part of it. And I think, you know, for kids, if you'd actually say to them, well, just imagine you're the other person, or if you're not, even if they're not the one doing the bullying, you know, showing them instances, because all kids, when I ask them if they're online and then I say who's seen cyberbullying, their hands stay up. They've all seen it. So it's about saying, well, imagine if you were that other person, how would you feel?
Yeah.
And, you know, even if you can't see their face.
You're right. How would you feel? We have to dialogue with, you have to ask them these questions and then answer the question. Like somebody in the room and go, oh, why would you do that? And that has to happen. Parents assume don't bully means that the kids won't bully, but really we have to tell them the why. So first, we have to tell them, teach them empathy, but we also have to teach them step 2, step 3, step 4, meaning when you see it, here's what you do. If you receive it, don't stand up to the bully. They want a response. Go to an adult. Go to your best friend. Do these things. Adults are here to help. Teachers are here to help. And so, unlike you, we have to educate the kids on what it is. We have to communicate with them, but we also have to give them steps on what to do when that happens. And these questions, like you just asked, how would that feel? Those are important, and then open-ended and let the kid answer.
Absolutely.
Because as soon as a child answers, then they feel like they're an adult and they get to make a choice.
That's it. I think it's about going a whole lot deeper into these topics. And, you know, I mean, it's like when, you know, parents say to kids, you know, don't talk to strangers online, and they think that the kids, well, they've been told that now they're not going to talk to a stranger. But you need to explain, well, who is a stranger? Because a child thinks, well, I've spoken to someone now, I've had 10 messages back and forth online, so they're not a stranger anymore. But they don't know them in real life. You know, that doesn't mean it can't be a 40-year-old sleazy, you know, what, you know?
Yeah. And then not only don't talk to strangers, but here's what a stranger can do.
Yes.
And I don't think I'm with you on that, that if you teach a child already knows bad things in life because they've seen them on Netflix, they've seen them everywhere else, and they've heard about them from school. It's better for you to say, there's people that don't love you as much as your parents do, and they do bad things online. I want to tell you about this so that you don't avoid that. In the United States, we teach kids what drunk driving looks like and when you speed. And we show them, schools, high schools will actually have a day where they just show people, here's what this looks like. People die, right? And it sounds so bad, but it sticks in the kids' heads. And the kids go, all right, I know I shouldn't do that. And I think not enough parents do this. Here's what strangers are. Here's what bullying does. It's a big deal. In the U.S., we have a lot of school incidents because of this. Some would say it starts because of bullying, right? Not everybody. And so I couldn't agree with you more on that level. Yeah. What's another topic?
I just want to say, I think kids too, if they understand up front what's involved in social media, and I think because I'm involved in this, I mean, my oldest son is 10 at the moment, and there's an awful lot of 10-year-olds asking for phones and asking to be on social media. My son told me, why would I want a phone? I don't want a phone till I'm 16. You know, and I don't want to go anywhere near social media. And I think the reason for that is not because I've said don't use it. it's because he's aware of
Yeah.
what happens there. It's because
Yeah.
I've said, here's what happens there. If you're going to go there, this is what happens. And this
Yeah.
is the reality. You're going to see, nasty comments. You're going to see some pretty awful content there, pretty awful stuff. I mean, you put in words suitable, age appropriate.
Yeah.
But when they have that understanding, and the thing is that they have a choice, because I think kids think there's so much peer pressure. My friends are using this, I have to be there too. And it's just giving them a choice. No, you don't have to use it. And, this fear of missing out is actually worse if you're on it than if you're not on social media. I think that's a really big point too.
That's a really good, FOMO, fear of missing out, is a huge deal.
It's a massive deal. And, I mean, you're going to have it anyway. If you're not there, then yes, maybe you won't be invited to a party or something. But if you are there, the pressure to check every message that comes through on your feed, it's far worse. It's far worse than if you're just not there at all.
Yeah.
So I think just, they have a choice. You don't have to use social media, certainly not before you're 13.
So let's talk about that for a sec. I interviewed a bunch of high school students here in Los Angeles, and actually one of the school in a previous episode, to everybody that's listening to this episode, like 43, 44, 45, somewhere around there's 2 episodes where a principal gave me an amazing principal that we've worked with, said, here, you can interview our students. We had a conference room and I got 7 students in the room and we just had a 1-hour dialogue. And some of the students said when they got on social media and when they got a phone. And I kind of want to talk about that with you right now. When do you think it's a good time, a good age to get a phone?
Yeah, that's a big question too. I don't think it's necessarily an age thing. I really think it's a maturity thing. I think, and a reason why, like, is there a reason to get a phone? I think, okay, if you're 10 years old, I don't understand why you need a phone unless you're traveling a long way. If there's a reason, you get a bus and you miss the bus or something. I mean, even my kids just in the last couple of weeks have started to walk to school on their own. And so we've had these conversations, should they have a phone to make sure that they're there, or should we track them or something like that?
Yeah.
And I think, well, I don't think it's necessary. They can go to the school office. If they really need to call, all they need to do is go into the office and the lady in the office will give us a call.
Yeah.
So they don't need a phone. So I think that's one question of why. Why do they need it, or do they need it?
So here's what some of the students said last week, and I don't disagree with them. They said, I'm a big believer that at the age of 14, it's only after 14 that you get a phone. Let kids be kids a little while longer. Don't give them FOMO and anxiety and all these other things. But the kids had a great point. The divorce rate is high. So 2 different sets of parents, and the parents sometimes don't want to talk to each other. So they'll use that as an excuse to get their kids a smartphone. But the students last week said, why don't we it's better to give kids a flip phone or a slide phone that has barely any texting, difficult texting, and only phone calls. They said that's easier because we don't need to know what to do with it. It's less anxiety because someone can call us. Our mom can call us and know where we're at. And the students came up with the solution of between the ages of 11 to 14, they should have a flip phone. And 14 higher is a good time for a smartphone, which I thought that's really neat because if you do need it on the bus or walking to school, you've got an emergency device. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Again, what's necessary and why is it necessary? It's like an alarm clock in the morning. Kids say, or even adults say, they need their phones in the room at night for an alarm clock. Well, go and buy a $10 alarm clock.
Yeah.
You don't need, there are ways around it. If you want to find ways around it, there are ways around it. You can always make excuses why you think someone needs a phone. But if you actually stop and look at the whole situation, well, really, what is the reason that phone is required? And if it is required, then absolutely, why do you need a smartphone? Do you need access to the internet, or do you just need something that will make a phone call?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the kids themselves are saying that.
The kids themselves, this is a great school, really good students. See, this is actually, Ruth, this is one of the discussions we had with the students. One of the students came in and said, our school's motto is, we are problem solvers, and the school teaches them to problem solve. So one of the things, and everybody listening to the podcast, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but you probably missed that episode because not everybody listens to every episode. But the students said, here's a great way to get us off our phones. Because I know, Ruth, you've probably seen this. Every student, like I've gotten 3 calls since this podcast started. I'm not trying not to look at it, but I've got somebody, I'm like turning it off, even though it's always on silent. Students are on their phones too much, right? We all know that, but adults have a different view of that. So I asked students, I said, raise your hand if you've been told that. All 7 go, me. And then what are some ways, why are you online? And what are some ways parents can work with you so that they're happy and you're happy? And here's what the students came up with. I like this. They said, first of all, one of the young women was super mature, and she said, I'm not on my phone that much. I don't need to be. I put it in a drawer. I turn it off. I got to get my stuff done. It's just very rarely 1 in 10 kids has that, the gift of knowing the time management. But the other one said this. They said, wouldn't it be nice if our parents, instead of just taking the phone away, said, hey, I'm noticing you're on your phone a lot, and it's kind of rude. I want you to, in the next 2 weeks or 1 week, to figure out how to be on your phone less so we can have a discussion. You're going to figure this out. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, I'm going to take your phone away if I feel like you haven't fixed it. You've got a problem. You figure out, you come to me if you want to figure this out, but in 2 weeks, I'm taking your phone away if you can't figure out at the dinner table how to fix this. And the students said, great, we get to problem solve. We know what the problem's going to, we know that we're not going to have this device. We're going to fix it. We're going to impress our parents. And they came up with that saying, we want to be an adult. We want to fix it. We want you to trust us, work with us instead of against us.
That's brilliant. That's so good. I think the other thing too is that parents really need to lead by example. And one thing that I'm very, very conscious of is, when my phone goes off, if I'm having, I put aside quality time, one-on-one time with each of my kids. And if I'm having that time, or when I'm having that time and I hear a message go off, it doesn't matter. The message is not more important than the quality time with my child. So when it comes up, it's not urgent. It'll wait 10 minutes until I finish having that time. And that teaches my kids a few things. I think it teaches them that right now they're more important than a message on the phone from I don't know who. And it teaches them that if a message comes through on their phones, they don't have phones yet, but when they do, they don't have to jump and run. They don't have to instantly react if they're in the middle of something else. And I think that's really, really important. Same thing if phones don't belong on the dinner table for parents as well as kids. And obviously, kids are going to copy what their parents do. And if they see the parent using a phone, constantly or way too much, and they don't have a phone yet, then when they do get a phone, they think that that's normal. They think that that's what you do. And so, of course, they're going to do that. And so it's not really fair, I don't think, as a parent, if we can't put our phones down, to expect something different of our kids. I don't think that's right. I think it's just so, so important to lead by example, even before they have that.
Students say, hey, mom, dad, we're looking at you. Yeah. Exactly. That's terrific. So what do you think's next? Now, actually, may I, in a gentle manner, disagree with you on a topic? Can we have a debate for just a sec?
That could be interesting.
And I love where you're coming from. I love what you do. I have a lot of respect, and I'm so honored that you would say all the nice things and stuff. I do get to see a little bit of a different side from law enforcement, and I do hear from some parents and some educators that it's okay to look through your kid's phone. I hear from some dads. Everybody listening to this right now, I want you to know that Ruth has a great alternative, right? A spyware software. That's great. It alerts you. But let me do a counter argument just for a sec. And I'll tell you my opinion, and it's my opinion. Everybody can throw it out the window, but we all have different opinions. And parents, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, you are the only expert in your house. You put food on the table, you pay the mortgage, you get your kids to school, you are the expert. We're just here. You're going to decide when your kids actually have a device, and you're going to deal with the consequences. So we're just here to give you a menu of ideas. My menu, I would suggest, is have a rich dialogue with your kids. I don't believe in spyware software as much. I believe a dialogue is important. And I believe that when you're an adult and you do what's called in the US, bring your own device to work, where you hook this up to your company's email and you work for a big company or even a little company, you don't actually own this, and your company can look at it at any time. They have the right to go through your email and look at it. We as adults, we get audited, whether we like it or not, at a big company. right? I used to work at a very large firm, and your stuff gets looked at and audited, whether you like it or not. I do believe that kids can go through that too. I believe that, and I've heard from some great dads and some great moms that say, hey, I had a mom on the podcast not that long ago, and she said, Josh, I don't believe a 14-year-old boy should have a conversation with a girl that I don't know about. They should not be talking in chat without me knowing. There are no secret conversations that my son should be having with a young woman, right? And I thought, look at her. She's protecting that young woman and protecting her son and letting him know, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was a really interesting, good mom. Another dad told me, hey, I have a rule with my daughter. She knows that this device was purchased by me, that I love her and I trust her. But at dinner, if I say I want to see it, she tosses the phone to him. He scrolls through it. He looks at it. He goes, looks good. And he throws it back to her. They have a very, very close-knit relationship where she can get audited at any moment. And she knows what she does. She has a lot of freedom, but her dad's going to be there, and there's no chat. It's like a random drug test. And we as adults get treated like that, right? With a big company. And I do believe some of the best parents are treating their kids like that, an adult, and explaining, look, I get audited. So that's my 2 cents. Just another, for everybody listening, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Spyware software is great, but sometimes it leaves a little bit to be desired. I don't get paid by any of them, but it's what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, spying is such an awful word, and I don't agree with it at all.
Sorry.
I mean, if you do see something that your kids are doing and they don't know that you can see it, then how are you going to raise it with them? Anyway, that just gets really awkward.
Yeah.
So I certainly don't think you should be doing that. I don't think it's viable. The point is that parents are busy. You don't have time. You barely have time to keep up with your own messages. As if you're going to have time to keep up with every message that your child is sending when they're sending who knows how many messages every day. It's just not viable, and it's not necessary. So that's why I've actually changed my view on this. I initially started out thinking, no, it's all about communication and trust and randomly checking phones, and that's all you should do. I think the reason I've changed my view a little bit is because I do like the idea of a parental control where it just alerts you if there's something wrong, because it just means that in that moment in time, if maybe your child has tried to send an image that they shouldn't have sent, or they've received an image or something like that, then it means that you're aware of it at a good time to be aware of it so that you can jump on it straight away. True. And not tell them off. It's not about arguing with your child at all. It's just about starting that dialogue or that conversation at the right time.
Yeah.
And using it as an educational opportunity.
Yeah.
That's really timely. So I think that's
Let me ask you this. Are you using any of that software right now?
At the moment, my kids don't have, like I said, they're not using phones.
Okay.
They don't want phones.
I haven't, you can correct me if I'm wrong and email me after the episode's over, but I haven't found one that, everybody's going to hate me. I haven't found one that I like the people behind them, but on an iPhone, which 80%, 90% of kids in middle school and high school here in the US have an iPhone. I haven't found one that's able to log into Snapchat and Instagram or other things and see what's going on, because Apple is good at making silos. Each individual app doesn't let other things see it. So, shameless plug, if this was Instagram and this was Facebook and this was something else, they all sit like silos and nothing can get into the other ones. So the safety app can't dig into both. They're all individual. And that's good for FBI and privacy and safety, but it's bad if you want to get in there. So I have not yet found one that does that. And I don't know that I trust. And once again, I don't disagree with you. This is my thought process. And I don't know that I trust an AI algorithm. Another thing to note, in the US, the laws are probably very different. If an underage kid sends an inappropriate photo to your son or daughter, let's say a young woman sends an inappropriate sext to your son, thinking to impress him, and you intercept that through another app, you now contain inappropriate information on your phone. Wow, what do you do, right? I'm always thinking from a legal standpoint, this is really bad. So that's just another thing to be really careful of, and that's Ruth, I agree with you on the education and communication first. Son
Yeah.
or daughter, if you get sent an inappropriate photo, this is what happens legally. Mom or dad could lose their job because this happened in X, Y, and Z. And everybody listening and watching this, if you are a doctor, a lawyer, have a professional job of any sort where someone could Google you and you could lose your job if something terrible happened, this could hurt you even worse than it hurts your child. A lot. And when we started this off, a lot of parents don't think that Google results matter. What would you tell them, Ruth?
Yeah, absolutely they matter. That's how people are finding out. And people are judging people, whether that's right or wrong. The fact is that you're being judged by who you look like you are online. And this is why it's so important to be who you are, be the same person online as offline. And, you don't have to inflate. You don't have to pretend that life is something that it's not, it's better than it is. But you have to be real. You have to say, well, would I like me? So I think it's a really good question to look at who you are. If you Google yourself online, look at what comes up and say, well, do I like this person? And do I think that actually is me? And if it's not, then you might want to change that, because people are making judgments that are not right, and they're going to make them whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So you might as well make sure they're making a judgment on who you really are.
Put your best foot forward. Yeah. Another thing that we hear a lot of parents say is, and there's got to be a phrase for this, but it's basically, it's like whatever. We all know it's, I'll wait until something bad happens. It's one of those things. There's no pain point. In business, the customer has to have a pain point and then they're ready. Schools have a pain point. They hire people like you and I to speak, and they know something bad is happening. They're getting pressure from PTA, parent-teacher associations, or whatever. That's their pain point. Parents don't have a pain point. So what a lot of parents will say to me is, my son and daughter are fine when I Google them, an arrested person's photos come up, the mugshot of them holding their name and their number, their prison ID number, scared like that. And all that stuff comes up, but that's someone else. My daughter's fine. It's another woman that got arrested. What would you tell them?
I mean, I don't know, and you know, I think more than I do on this. I don't know that you can control. I'm not sure how you can control. I mean, if you've got a common name and other people have the same name as you, I think it's difficult then to control if they look bad and that's not you, how to prove that that's not you. I think,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
To me, it's more like, well, focus on what's within your control, which is make sure that you look good online. How much you can control how other people look, I'm not sure. It's partly, I suppose, what I know what I've been doing is putting a lot of positive stuff online so that when someone searches for my name, it is me that comes up and it's good stuff.
Exactly. So we talk to students, we tell moms and dads, a lot of people say, hey, my daughter isn't online yet, or my son isn't online, but all these other people come up. So what we tell them is, look, at a young age, it's time to start talking. At the age of 14, it's time to start having a discussion about what should we put online that's a positive volunteer photo, group photos. Because when a college, a university, an employer searches online, they see all these drunk photos of the person that got arrested. What we want them to find is the student they're looking for. If it was Josh that they were looking for and they found another Josh Ochs that was arrested and drunk or whatever, doing drugs, we want them to find the same image of this Josh on all networks. So I take the same photo of me that's nerdy and I put it on every network. I don't take random selfies. You know that this is the Josh you're looking for. That criminal is not that one. And I make it easy for them. And now the employer is starting to root for me, the Josh. No, that's not Josh, because he has the same photo on all of his networks. And he's put his best foot forward to make it easy for us. Now I can connect the dots easy. And that's what we tell parents is, it is never too early to start building a positive profile. Don't assume people know, oh, I don't see any Google results, just that arrested person. They're going to assume that's the sibling of the person, the aunt, the uncle, or somebody else. So real human nature, when you sit on the other side of the fence, is extremely different. Take it from an employer, take it from all my friends that are employers. They see it very, very differently. They don't have the benefit of the doubt. Now, I had a talk, Ruth, with somebody in my office here just a few minutes ago. This year, the freshman applications, the incoming freshmen to UCLA, the University of California in Los Angeles, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from here, about 15 minutes without traffic, 14 hours with traffic. They had 115,000 applicants for this year. 115,000. They can only let in about 11% of that, 10%. And I mean, we try and tell them, parents, look, they may not Google your kid, but someone's going to eventually. And if you're dying to get your kid into this great institution, they have to say no to 90% of people. It's just a fact. They only have 44,000 people in there, and they can let in about 11,000. And out of 115,000 or so, we want them to find your kid and say, okay, they have soccer on their resume, their application. Here's them playing soccer. That's the Josh we're looking for. They have this on their resume. Here's them on Google doing that same thing. Not fake, not showing how skinny or pretty they are, but actually doing that stuff. And something else we didn't, they're actually teaching people how to play soccer. So everyone listening to this right now, it's too late if you decide at 16, 17, 18, oh, now's the time, we'll fake it online. It's got to start earlier to look at what bad results are, good results, and everything else, because you can't fool Google. I'm on my soapbox. I truly apologize. Go ahead, Ruth. What would you say to people about what they should be working with their kids to put online?
I think it's a brilliant idea of having the same photo everywhere, and definitely I have the same image as well on different sites. Definitely agree with that. It's all about being, well, I think what you think, the whole light, bright, polite thing. I do think anything that they've done that is positive, that's sporty, that's active, that's volunteering, if there are any achievements they've done. So like on my Facebook page, for instance, or my profile, I don't actually post a lot at all. But the things that I do post are things that I'm happy for anyone in the world to see. And I think this is the whole question. Are you happy for anyone to see this? So for instance, on my profile, there isn't much. I mean, there's not that I'm not proud of things, but I mean, I posted when, I published my book. Here's my book. Yay, here it is, And I posted when I got my black belt in karate. Wow,
That's
here
great.
I am. So things that I'm proud of, and that I don't care who you are in the world, I'm quite happy for you to know this.
Yeah.
So if that's the message, and you know what, I had a great time because I helped some sort of volunteer organisation, and they're better off because of what I did, and I feel really good about it.
Yeah.
So
those are things you should get caught doing.
Yeah. So I think it's anything along those lines. I think that's the question. Rather than saying this is the type of post, I think it's more the question to ask is, am I happy? Am I proud? I'm perfectly happy for anyone in the world to see this. And if I am, then it must be something positive enough.
Yeah.
There can't be any swear words in it. Can't be making me look bad, or I wouldn't want my grandparent or my teachers or anyone else to see it.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of you listening to this, every once in a while I get a person going, well, wait, is it really that bad if there's a swear word in it? I mean, I told you that story in the beginning where there was one swear word in a video, but the message of the video was so powerful that, let's use me as a bad example. That one swear word to that principal made me look terrible. And it ended up hurting my reputation with that principal, even though the message was great. I mean, I should actually use this as a bigger example. Even though the message and Denzel Washington in that video and all these other executives, that was such an important thing. That one swear word was somewhat associated with me because we embedded that YouTube on our website and said, parents only watch this. That one school really doesn't like me. Now, I've got thousands of other schools all over the world. A school in Kenya wrote me the nicest email. So I take it with a grain of salt if a principal is upset at me. But look how that person judged me on someone else's swear word, right? So for everybody listening and watching this, one little thing, we don't want you to be fake. We don't want you to be too PC. But if you have the opportunity to make sure that everybody sees the best foot forward of you, is that something you want to take? Take it from me. I got in trouble for sharing something super valuable that had a swear word 10 minutes and 53 seconds into the video. And yet it may save a life, and I still got in trouble. So
But then
It's
you need to put that in perspective. I mean, that's one person out of how many others that would see that.
agreed. But it's my job to listen and learn and laugh. Listen, LLL. Look at that. Somebody write that down. I like
quick.
listen, learn, and laugh. And that's this is how I write books. I just make stupid ideas and I write them down. But we do need to take everything within reason, within a grain of salt, and that principle had the right message. But let me make my mistake must become an example. I got judged, and if I were to say that word, I would be judged even more. So for those of you parents that are listening, going, whatever, it's fine. Yes, but it's also amazing to sit down in front of Google and Google somebody with your kids sitting next to you. Have journalists be the bad person. If you're the bad parent and you feel like you're always telling your kids what not to do, and you're the police officer in the family, boy, that must be frustrating. That's why we develop Parent University, to help people sit their kids down and make me the bad person. Let me tell my story. A trusted outsider, an aunt, an uncle is way easier to get your kids motivated, because the person that loves them the most, they won't listen to, because you're cooking them dinner every night. You're like there, and they're like, oh gosh, they're rolling their eyes. But get somebody else to do that and sit them in front of Google and go, well, what's going to happen to that person? Googling and letting a student feel like the adult, you might not have to tell them what to do. They'll just maybe do it themselves. Ruth, what are your comments?
Absolutely. And again, I think don't underestimate your kids. I think kids are so smart and they can see things for themselves, and they love having the option of making their own choices. So I think as a parent, it's not about telling them what to do. It's about letting them decide what to do, sort of guiding them in the right direction, hoping that they'll make the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a great idea to see other people's profiles and say, well, what do you think of that? Is that a good post? Is that not a good post? Why? What makes that good? What makes that not good?
It hits on the anti-bullying that we just talked about, which says rather than telling a kid don't bully, you ask them, how would you feel? What would you? And then that little brain is developing, because until they're 25 in the US, they're not considered an adult by psychologists. And I would argue 35, for men. Sorry, women, you mature faster, but right. And letting them then think on their own.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they'll always come up with better ideas. And this is all about, I say to parents, it's not about you telling your kids what to do online. It's about you giving them or helping them so that they can make the right decisions on their own, so that you don't have to be there, so that you know that they're smart enough, that they know what's a good idea and what's not a good idea, and that before they hit the send button, they're actually rereading what they want to share, and they're asking themselves those questions. Is this a good idea? Is this going to possibly upset someone? Is this going to make me look bad? Am I happy for the whole world to see this?
Yeah.
So if they're asking themselves these questions and they've got that education and this going on in their mind first, then you don't need to be monitoring everything they do.
Yeah, that's terrific. We've talked about a lot. I've learned from you. I love that phrase, education and communication. We help students understand the consequences. I couldn't agree more with that. We like to tell students the why, and then also listen, learn, and laugh, because I'll tell you what, there's the world, and Ruth, you see this a lot too. Because we're all online now, it seems like this is going to sound negative, but I don't want to sound negative. The world quickly can become negative very fast online. A response to something, or perhaps a Facebook post, people decide to vent there, and it's what you've said. I couldn't agree more, but making sure everybody wants to see that. But parents, if you're posting something online that might be alienating certain people online, and I'm not going to be vague, I'm just going to say it. If it's political, religious in nature, you have the right to those beliefs. Go tell your best friend, your spouse, somebody else. Tell them in life. Text them. Vent. We tell students, vent. You have the right to your feelings. But what you might not want to do, and you might want to protect your future by not sharing that with 350 people or 3,500 people, instead texting your 3 closest friends who you can vent like crazy. Text your spouse, yell, and raise your voice and have fun with it with someone that loves you. The world does not love you as much as your inner closest 5 people. So consider that, because now that we're online, people see text very differently than real life.
Absolutely. I think there's so many different ways to communicate. And I mean, it's things like, people, you don't break up with a partner via text message. A lot of people do that, but I mean, that's just wrong. So it's just helping your kids, I think, is also a really important thing to understand what is appropriate on what form of communication, because now there are so many different forms of communication. What's appropriate to send by text? What's appropriate to pick up the phone, which kids hardly ever do anyway?
Yeah.
And what's appropriate to put in writing, and what's appropriate to say face to face? I think that's a
Yeah.
really, really important thing
And
to.
they'll only learn that by adults teaching them.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't be expecting them to just know. Well, how would they know?
And one more point on that same note, you're so right. We can't expect them to know that, but we also can't only expect them to learn that at school. Schools have a lot to teach a student. They can't be digital experts all of a sudden. And a lot of parents expect them to be. Hey, you're in charge of my daughter. Why aren't you doing this, this, and this? So do your best. The kids actually technically spend more time with you in your home than they do at school. So it's an equal amount of, and everybody's listening to this is like preaching to the choir because you're all actively involved, but make sure you know that your friends their kids are spending more time if they're complaining, you're just as much school at home as you are at school.
Yeah. I think parents do depend an awful lot on schools to do a lot of things. But I mean, I feel for teachers. I think teachers have such a lot of responsibility, and their parents are so quick to bag them out. And, principals, I don't know why anyone would want to be a principal these days. But they have so much pressure on them. And I do think that parents need to sort of go, well, hang on a minute. Maybe this isn't actually the teacher's responsibility. Maybe I can't actually expect them to do basic parenting.
And that means that your kid's probably not going to like you once a week, once a month. And if you love your kid, that means they won't like you sometimes, right?
Exactly. And you know what? In a few years, maybe they'll appreciate it. But I'd rather have a child who's upset with me than a child who, has done something stupid because I haven't, maybe I shouldn't say that word, but, who's done something silly because I haven't made the effort to help them, to sit down with them and explain to them, what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
So if they're upset with me, they're upset with me. At least they're alive. At least they haven't been abducted by someone.
It's so true. When I was a kid, my friends were hanging out just doing silly stuff. My parents forced me to go. We like managed some apartments, and my dad forced me to go on the weekends and learn how to do plumbing, electrical, and heating. And I hated it. But now I am the only person out of all of my friends that knows how to do all these neat skills. And I'm the most popular person. Somebody called me yesterday and said, I need you to pick something up from this hardware store, and you're the only person I know that has these skills. And your kids are probably going to hate it, but you know what's best for them. Try and soften that blow. And now I look at my parents, I'm like, hey, this is great. I've got all these skills that none of my friends have, whether it's language or power drills or something else. Hey, Ruth, you're a total delight. I really enjoy your dialogue. We should do this more often. Will you do this every once in a while?
Absolutely.
What time is it there?
We could talk for hours and hours. It's 5 to 11 here in the morning.
It's almost 11 a.m. there on it's tomorrow. It's Thursday there and it's Wednesday here. I really appreciate it. All your time today, Ruth. Keep up doing that great job. I really appreciate all that you're doing. And for those of you listening, you can pick up a cheap copy of our book on Amazon. They're all $10. You can get a free copy in Parent University. We believe in 3 things for your child. 1, talk to your children about a positive online presence so they can build an online resume at a young age, or at least know what that looks like, and that everything that they do ends up changing their Google footprint. Let's protect them from their future. Number 2, we believe in safety. We want to protect your students from bad people out there and make sure that your information is safe. And number 3, we want to protect your kids from each other. And that's our anti-bullying program, that your kids actually watch videos to learn. And it turns us into the bad person, but it walks them through everything so they have a vocabulary on what could go wrong, how that feels, and how to respond. And we believe in those 3 things for your family. I hope you'll consider joining Parent University and taking us up on our offer so that you can watch some of these videos and at the very least, have a vocabulary that your kids can use if something goes wrong. Ruth, thank you to you for today or for tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to everybody else for joining in. As always, keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great day.